This conference will now be recorded.
So
If there wasn't a, listen, if there's not a berm big enough, somebody's behind, for them to get off the button, then, so.
he was the first one. I just told you this.
Oh.
All these people said, yeah, nobody wants the job. He's the first one, so we must be doing a good job.
If somebody has a big event,
This conference will now be recorded.
Trustees regular scheduled meeting, August 10th, 2021 at 6:30 PM. Please stand for the pledge if you're able. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There's one person logged in virtually for their benefit. We have all the department heads here, all the trustees are in attendance. The only department head that's not here is Mr. Mitchell. He is joining us online, and due to scheduling, we're going to deviate slightly from the agenda and have Mr. Mitchell give us his report first. Mr. Mitchell, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. One request for the board tonight, and that is a request and motion to continue the senior snowplow program for the 2021-2022 winter season. The months of the contract with the contractors will remain the same, November 1st, 2021 to April 1st, 2022. And the reason why I'm asking to continue it now is so that we can get all the applicant letters out to our participating seniors so that we can get those back and compile the lists. So that is the request I have, is to motion continue our very popular senior snowplow program.
so move Schulte.
Second, Colner. Couple questions I have, Mr. Mitchell, is about what do we spend annually on the senior snowplow program, and was the second was did we budget it for this year?
Yeah, we did budget for it. We did budget for it. We have remaining monies left over from last year. I don't have the number in front of me as far as what we spent last year. We have about 320 participants at $15 a driveway, so we're looking at just about 4,000 per episode when I call them out. And last year, I think we only called them out 3 or 4 times, so we didn't have much for them to do. We do have excess money from the year before that we are going to apply to this year.
Any further questions? You just need a motion and a vote for that, correct? There's no resolution here.
No resolution.
All right, I'll call for the vote.
Dressler, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. On the subject of speed tables, as you know, we've been collecting the data off our radar signs of numerous different roads throughout the township. We have printed those off, put them in a binder, and have sent them to Chief Meyer, and then him and I will review those together and make a recommendation for the board on where we think the first one should be located.
Okay.
We do have a cemetery deed for Deborah Smith that needs to be signed by the board. You should have received July monthly report. I did send that off today, so if you haven't read it, it's there.
We did. I saw it. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So
Is it okay if Chief Meyer gives us further information about the speed tables during his report and an idea of when?
oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no problem. I've got an idea in my head where I think our first one should go. So like I say, if he wants to inject his opinion, that's perfectly fine with me.
And I'm guessing you gave that information to Chief Meyer already. Is that correct?
Yes, that was given to him yesterday. We've
Okay.
been, like I say, we've been rotating these signs in various locations throughout the township. And once we get that data downloaded, then we can create charts and from those charts, we'll determine what road, we'll start putting these in.
Okay, we're going to try and expedite this. We'll work with Chief Meyer this evening. We're going to try and expedite this so we can, while kids are going to school now in the next few weeks and the weather's still decent, we want to get those in place.
Yeah, understood.
Okay.
Mark, could you tell us which location or locations you are going to recommend first? Not one.
Were you able to hear that, Mr. Mitchell?
No, I'm sorry, I did not.
Chief Meyer was asking if you could send us the recommendations, or could you verbalize the recommendations that you have, as he just received this information late yesterday and had not had time to review it.
My first recommendation would be on Ridgecrest east of Hametown, in both segments of the road, both between Hametown and Redfield, and then from Redfield to Heritage Woods Drive. I think that's a necessary spot because that's one of the main cut throughs of the township, getting over to the Montrose Restaurant Hill in that area. The other is, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Keep going. I apologize.
The second one would be Westmont Boulevard. We've had people ask us about speed control on that road as well. That seems to be a major road to cut up through to get to Hametown to go out from some of the west side. Plus, I'm considering Creek Ledge going out to Route 18. Those three roads seem to be the main ones that I personally think we should begin on.
And your opinion is based on the data you've been collecting. Is that accurate?
Yes. Ridgecrest is probably number one. Westmont was number two. Creek Ledge is just the main road. That actually starts as Litchfield in the Wedgewood allotment, goes through the Wedgewood allotment as Litchfield, then turns into Misty Lane as it goes up through the Ridgecrest area. And then once it gets past Rock Ridge, it turns into Creek Ledge, and that's a main road for folks to get out to Route 18. So I think those are the three main roads that I would recommend.
Okay. And was there a fourth? I think we have 4 tables. Is that correct?
Well, we have 5, but I'm thinking that we're going to need to put a couple on.
Oh, 2. Okay. You're right. Okay.
If you have a long stretch of road, it doesn't do any good to put one speed table there. You need to get it mid-block, and mid-block between Hametown and Redfield, mid-block between Redfield and Heritage Woods on Ridgecrest Drive, and 2 on Westmont, mid-block between Hametown and Silver Ridge, and another one mid-block between Silver Ridge and Misty Lane. And then the 5th one, we could go out into the Creek Ledge area.
Understood.
Mark, it's Jim Schulte. I'm curious, have you also measured the volume of traffic and the speed on the alternate routes? So in other words, if you put two speed humps on Ridgecrest, do we know what that's going to do to the alternative routes of traffic? Right. So we have the historical data for the parallel roads.
They go to Cobblestone and Sierra.
Right. Exactly. So that we can compare that.
I haven't gotten to Cobblestone yet. I think we did one on Bentley. That should be in the report. I did not do one coming from the Kingsbury Trace allotment on the southern end of Redfield as it comes up to Ridgecrest. So okay. I'd have to look at it again, Jim, to see what those numbers are. I was looking mainly at number 1 and number 2 and number 3.
Yeah, I agree with your selections. I have nothing wrong with that. I'm just thinking from a prospective approach. I'd like to know what the impact is on traffic. How many cars it forces to go on another route, and are we just passing the buck to another street? And I'd like to actually be able to quantify that difference so that when a resident questions us on it, we have the data. So we kind of need a before and after, if you will.
Yeah, well, like I say, we did eastbound on Bentley, down from Hametown to Redfield. that. We did do a week's worth of data on that. Like I said, I didn't do anything on Redfield from the southern end, so we certainly can and get those and see if the traffic counts increase on those side streets once the tables go in.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Mitchell? All right, sir, that's all we have for now. I know you have a lot on your plate this evening. If you would, you could sign off, and if we need you, we will call you back on your cell phone. Is that all right?
That's fine with me, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay. So we'll go back to the top of the agenda. Anything from the Board of Trustees? I have one item. I am unable to attend the August 24th meeting. I don't know if we want to continue that meeting or just want to have it without my attendance. Is up to you folks. I'm just putting it out there. You might want to think about it as well.
Have it the next Tuesday or?
I can make the week before or the week after.
I can't do the week after. It's more important for you guys to be there, but I won't be available that weekend.
Jim, what do you do, 31st?
I'll leave it up to you. I'm good with that, or if you want to go 17.
So next Tuesday.
That's totally up to you folks. There is there's 5 weeks in a month, so we may want to move it to the 31st, and then it gives us 2 weeks between the next one.
Let's do that.
Move to the 31st.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you for being flexible. Ms. Marshall, do you need a vote for that to change the meeting date to the
I
31st?
don't believe so. We'll just make a
Announce it.
Okay.
notice.
Okay, thank you.
It's our regular schedule. It'll be a regularly scheduled business meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anything else from the Board of Trustees? Okay, Ms. Pfeiffer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have 2 items. First is a motion to approve the Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes of July 27th, 2021.
So move.
Second.
Any corrections, additions, or discussions? Hearing none, that's just a motion. I'll call for the vote.
So yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. Secondly, a motion acknowledging receipt and approval pending audit of the July 2021 financial statements.
So move, Colner.
Second, Justin.
Any discussion? Call for the vote again.
Justin, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Okay, and just an update on our audit has begun. I'm signing the engagement letter. And the cost of the audit is going to be $15,375. And it will conclude September 30th. So that's just our 1-year audit.
Could you repeat that amount again, please?
$15,375. And I'll ask for a purchase order the next meeting. That's all I have.
Anything for Ms. Pfeiffer?
Update on the banking RFP?
Chase submitted some questions and I answered them. So nothing set for right now.
And when's the final submittal
I
supposed to
don't
be?
have that in front of me.
Okay,
Sorry. But I can get it.
I can find it on the website. I was just
You
curious.
can.
Right.
You
But
can.
at this point, we have more than one bank in play.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right, move to Ms. Marshall.
Thank you. Our first request is approval of a resolution to pay the city of Norton payment for Dell equipment that is getting leased by the city of Norton for use with all the Swisscom IT partners. The agreement that we had agreed to prior to now indicated that the first payment would be due in 2022. I believe that was a mistake on the documents. They have an invoice and are needing to make a payment in 2021. So I would request that we approve a payment in 2021 for that $2,349.20. It's All IT costs are split evenly between the departments. Sorry. So the general fund, service, police, and fire each pay $3,587.30. The resolution also authorizes the fiscal officer to certify that the monies are used to satisfy the obligations of the contract and have been appropriated and available during the year 2021.
So move Schulte.
Second, Justin.
Any other discussion?
Budgeted, correct?
No,
No, it's not.
it was not budgeted
budgeted.
because we were anticipating a 2022. So just one comment.
Better will leave the budget.
So when the entities prepared the budget for the IT department at Swisscom, this amount, this equipment lease was included in the IT budget. It's $42,000 for the year, was included in the IT budget. So by having that IT budget in place, each community is paying for that $42,000 budgeted item. So this is kind of like paying for it twice, because we're paying our portion to IT, and now we're going to pay a $14,000 payment for this year out of Copley's funds. So I brought this up at the Swisscom board meeting, and it's being discussed tomorrow at the Swisscog meeting, to see some of the communities would prefer to just keep that money in the IT budget for cushion, for carryover for next year. But I just wanted to bring it to people's attention that that lease payment was included in the IT budget at the beginning of the year. And now because Norton is the entity that is engaged in the lease, we're paying Norton, and that money is just going to sit in that IT budget. So I kind of would like to know your opinion as to, would you like to have our contributions to IT reduced as the year goes on by that amount? Or would you like to keep it in as a cushion? Because this will be a discussion at the COG meeting tomorrow.
I'll defer to,
Go ahead.
I'll defer to you because you sit on the COG board, but at a glance, I don't see how we should turn Swiss COG into a savings account. That's just my opinion. We all have expenditures, and we bring them, of course, through the Swiss COG board to each municipality's board as well. And I think it'd be handled that way and not use the COG as a savings account, my opinion.
I would second on that. I'm thinking that if we want to establish a reserve in Swisscog, that should be part of the 2022 budget. And then we can buy off in the budget and make that happen at that time. So I would be in favor of reducing subsequent payments to Swisscog by this amount.
Okay, so tomorrow at the meeting, we can make that suggestion from Copley's perspective. It will go to a vote, I imagine, so that can be put forth tomorrow at that meeting.
The only thing I would the only thing I would defer on that would be, is there a reason why they need to have liquid cash available without waiting for municipality board approval? Meaning, do they have emergencies that they need to come up with? I would think not in that entity.
There can always be an emergency. A server can go down. There can be some crash somewhere, somehow, some why. So of course that can always happen. But we are also pretty responsive. And if something happens, I would think that we could approach it at that time. I don't know that it needs to be
And as
sitting
we sit here
there.
today, there's $600,000 in the bank for Swisscog.
Yeah.
Now, they pay payroll, and that goes pretty quick. And the member community contributions are not regular at sometimes.
Well, yeah, the third quarter just started too. So we
Yeah.
have, that has to last through
Right.
September.
Right.
Or August.
Well, I think we pretty much decided,
Through
so.
September.
All right. Need another direction with that?
No, just approval to pay it in 2021.
So we have motion and discuss. We'll just need to call the roll then.
Trustee Dressler,
Yes.
trustee Colner,
Yes.
trustee Schulte.
Yes.
And what was that resolution number?
83.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of a resolution to accept the material terms of the One Ohio subdivision settlement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and consistent with the terms of the July 21st, 2021 National Opioid Settlement Agreement. And I probably am going to defer to our legal counsel in his expertise on this. This is part of the opioid litigation that we engaged in with the county, which then turned into engaging with the state. And David has some information about the settlement.
Mr. Firestein, hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. We last week received notification that this aspect of the opioid litigation is teed up for settlement. It's not certain that this will fully resolve the cases. There are a few steps to it where the manufacturers and distributors have the ability to opt out. But the first step, or at least the current step that we're on now, requires any municipalities of 10,000 people or more that want to be in the settlement to opt into it by this Friday. I think it's by August 15th is a technical matter, but so we need to upload forms. Actually, it's Friday, August 13th. So the Ohio Municipal Lawyers Association has been circulating a lot of documentation that they've prepared that would meet the terms of the proposed settlement. That's the resolution that Janet prepared. It would authorize me as the law director to enter into the participation agreement with One Ohio. Then we would be moving on to the next stage of the potential settlement of this case. So it would be my recommendation that we take this step, enter into the resolution, and authorize me to enter into the participation agreement, since the only way to really see funds out of this other than through that is to bring your own independent case against these manufacturers or distributors, which I don't think is economically viable or feasible for the township.
Also move for discussion. So we've been over this a few times. Just so the public knows, from my understanding, the settlement will end up in the county's hands and used appropriately as discussed from the county legislation. Is that correct?
At a minimum, yes. But this recent memorandum of understanding has a spreadsheet prepared that is divided up by counties, townships, villages, and then puts them all in regions. And it allocates to Copley Township a direct payment to the subdivision at 70% of $90,000 plus dollars, and then a direct payment to the township at 100% of $130,000. So Janice and I were talking about this earlier today. It's kind of unclear if that money is earmarked and allocated for the township and goes through the county, or if it'll come directly to us. But I believe we will see some benefit from this settlement directly as a township. It just may be a question of whether or not it's paid over to the fiscal officer or through the county.
From what I recall from the previous discussions, when you mentioned earmarked, it was going to be primarily used for opioid addiction abatement. Is that correct?
That's right. There's specified uses for the money. It just can't go into general coffers. But I think So approved purposes would include expanding the availability of treatment for individuals affected by substance use disorders, developing, promoting, providing evidence-based substance use prevention strategies, providing substance use avoidance and awareness education, decreasing the supply of illicit and opioids, and supporting recovery from addiction services provided by qualified and appropriate licensed providers. So somewhat broad yet specific enough that it just can't be used for anything.
Perfect, okay. All right, any other discussion? Ms. Piper, will you call the roll, please?
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Kohler?
Yes.
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Thank you. Under the update for capital projects, simply want to reiterate the fact that Civic Plus Media will be used beginning in September to stream our meetings. The GoToMeeting app will not be engaged anymore, so anybody who has business with the township will need to appear at the town hall. They will be able to view the meeting and hear the meeting through our website, but communication between the viewer and the board won't be permitted with the Civic Plus Media's project. So just want to kind of keep that out there in front of the public. That will begin the meeting in September. And I would like to then request an executive session to discuss hiring of personnel in the service department and benefits of employment in all departments.
Okay. Anything further for Ms. Marshall? All right, Chief Bauer.
Good evening, everyone. First item of attention that I'd like for your consideration is a resolution to approve a purchase order to Polytech Associates for promotional assessment for the position of lieutenant in the fire department. This is something that was budgeted for, and we did discuss this at a previous meeting, and I had told the board to expect this. We do have, although I don't know if we've got all of the candidates yet, but most of the people that can apply have already applied for this position. And pending approval of a purchase order, we have a tentative date for the assessment of September 21st, although we do have until the 16th for all applications.
Okay.
So will Schulte.
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Piper, call the roll, please.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Kohler?
Yes.
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is a motion to accept with regret a letter of resignation from Quentin Brown effective immediately. Quentin is a Cleveland firefighter. He's also a lieutenant on Cleveland Fire. As with a lot of our part-time members, overtime, voluntary overtime and mandatory is prevalent. Quentin is one of quite a few of our part-time people that are in a position to have sometimes unlimited overtime. He also has an opportunity on their SWAT team that he's going to take advantage of. Quentin has been a great employee. We're going to miss him. He turned in a very eloquent resignation letter, and he's welcome back.
So will Schulte.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote.
Johnson, yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
And capital projects, we did just get the okay from Dave Firestein as to form on the proposal from the architect for design changes to the fire department. So moving forward, we'll take a closer eye at that contract as the content. A liaison with Mark Mitchell as well as Ms. Marshall. And I would expect at either the next or the following meeting to have that proposal and a request for a purchase order to pay for those services. As far as overtime, I did send the board an update. It was mostly just a comparison of this past July to previous years in the same month. Last year being COVID was kind of a one-off. So I think 2019 was a little bit better benchmark. for overtime, and we're about 200 hours below what we were in July of 19. So we're hoping to continue that trend. We did have our busiest July ever. I think I've got, just for representation purposes, 259 calls for July. I believe that's our busiest by 3 to 4 runs. So we continue to set a very brisk pace. Would also like to mention a couple other things. We, last week, between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Heritage Days, along with some activities to recognize the years of service that Assistant Chief Moore gave to the department, all took a lot of effort and coordination. Not much by me. And it's all the good people that work in the fire department that take ownership of these things and take pride in these things. So we had a real nice open house, which all of the board came to on Thursday. My thanks for your attendance. And I think that Assistant Chief Moore was very appreciative of the time and attention that we were able to pay to him. And then Friday, our Friday crew at Station 1 gave him a ride home in the engine, which is somewhat of a tradition. Now, I didn't know if he was going to go for that. Keith's usually like, hey, Keith, you think you want to ride in the engine on the way home? And I kind of expect him to go.
As long as he wasn't driving, that's fine.
Well, that's right. So he said, well, you know, if you want to, which for him means, yeah, I want you to. So we gave him a ride home. And although I had a doctor's appointment and couldn't be here, all accounts are the engine came to a complete stop. And
Didn't push him out on the run.
no, wasn't a rolling kind of.
Turned the lights on and said, we gotta go, we gotta call, we're gonna slow down.
Right, no injuries reported, and everything was good. So I just wanted to update the board and reiterate my thanks to the department for doing all this while we continue to set record statistics. And the only other thing is to request executive session to discuss some part-time hiring in the fire department. We continue to do.
Any questions? I have one, Chief. What's the percentage of overtime as compared to the budget currently? Do you have that number?
I mean, compared to overall?
Yes.
Well, we just reported that last month, and it was my understanding that the board only wanted that every.
Oh, I apologize if I don't recall saying that, but I'm sure some other person here might have asked that, so that's fine. I suspect with your recent change in personnel positioning that our overtime will get alleviated some as well.
I highly doubt that, but hope springs eternal. If I remember right, we are in the 13% range.
That's where it was last time.
Right.
Okay.
So, and since typically those don't change dramatically month to month, it was my understanding from some conversations that that percentage, because it does take some time to calculate that.
That's fine. That's fine. You don't need to explain.
Year to year comparisons month to the month are much easier.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions for Chief Bauer? Okay. Thank you. You did pretty good, Chief.
6 minutes.
You timed it?
Yes.
You timed it 6 minutes. I don't know if you were catching on to the overtime positioning thing. How are you tonight, Chief Meyer?
I'm doing good, thank you. Just returned from vacation and I've been swamped ever since I got back, but I did make it back in time for Heritage Days, which was highlighting my weekend. Enjoyed that immensely. We handed out American flags to as many children as we could find there, as well as their parents, which was very well received, which I think was a nice gesture given the current state of political affairs in this country, that we should celebrate America at the same time we're celebrating the birthday of America. My first request this evening is really an informative one, but also a request to the board. The annual Kylie Roses Run is scheduled to be held August the 29th, coming out of the Copley High School and going through the adjacent neighborhood there. The same course, I believe, as is normally used for these runs, these charity runs that take place. It just needs the confirmation from the board that it's okay for us to close the roadway there. Obviously, we don't close the roads completely. We just close the roads as needed to allow the runners to get through safely. That is scheduled to take place on August the 29th, and that's a well-received event in the community. So if you're okay with that, we'll go ahead and assist them again this year. The time on that is, look here, it's normally in the morning.
We have a flyer there, so.
Right there it is.
No, it's 4 PM. 5K runs at 4 PM and the family run at 5. Oh, I take that back. It's older.
This flyer doesn't seem to have it.
No, this flyer doesn't have a time. That's
a problem.
Flyer floating around, I think from the first year they did. So we'll have to find out the times. Usually it's in the morning.
Oh, it's not-
There you go. Here's you can do.
I don't recall the
virtual
time
from
when I
home.
signed up for it.
Last time I did it was in the morning.
I believe it's gonna
I
be
could still
in the
bring my
morning.
dog.
Historically,
Historically,
it's
it
in the
was.
morning.
I can still bring my dog, chief?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So bring your dog to the top of the circle during count.
Evidently not.
You stand.
Okay. All right, we'll find the time, but I'll make a motion that we allow the chief to do whatever traffic control measures he sees fit for this event.
Second Schulte.
The website shows.
Whatever it does. Okay. Any other discussion? Here, I'll call for the vote.
Johnson, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
Thank you. Also, you should have before you the Copley Police Department monthly report for July 2021. We'll look back to July of 2020.
It's on the screen.
Oh, there, okay. All right.
Okay. Anything else, chief?
Like I said, I just got back from vacation in Swamp. I did not check our overtime, so I'm not sure how that is. Janice knows off the top of her head. Sometimes she looks at those percentages, so I don't know. I can tell you that the capital budget situation is the same in terms of capital projects. We have now received all of the new dash cameras and equipment, so we'll have to make arrangements to get those installed. The Montrose cameras are on order and are not here yet. And as a matter of information, I just received a notice via email as we were sitting here that the Revere High School Music Association, and maybe the middle school as well, is going to be doing their annual collection of donations in those neighborhoods that children go to Revere schools. That'll be this Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So there might be increased activity in some of our neighborhoods in the northern part of Copley, which will be the parents driving their children around. They'll be going door to door. They don't need major offender permit for charitable purposes to benefit the school bands.
Okay.
And I think that's all I have.
The only other item there is for police is your packets do contain a agreement, a contract for the architect that has looked at the police station renovations. I know the chief has not really had a time to look it over or review it. This was done with Mark Mitchell. The architect went through and identified areas that need improvement and then created a contract for his services. So just, I don't know that we need to approve it tonight, just maybe take a look at it, see if this is the route you want to take. We also could do it piecemeal, replace the windows at one point, replace the doors at another point. This is like an all-encompassing project to really renovate that building. So this is an architect that Mark Mitchell has used in the past and has had success with. It's the same architect that has looked at the fire department, and David Firestein has approved as to form the both contracts for fire and police.
Would you like to discuss this?
I do want to discuss it. I'm not ready to vote on this, this proposal, but do you have questions?
I do. It was my understanding that we were going to take the shell of the police department, we were going to fix the roof, we're going to fix the windows, we're going to fix the gutters, we're going to do those kind of things. I'm confused where those actual construction elements end and begin, and why we need an architect to do that.
Beyond that, at some point in time, I guess Mark does coordinate the building, contacted an architect to get some input from the architect, because I personally, from what I'm seeing, I'm not interested in pursuing anything.
So I do recall a conversation we had with Mr. Mitchell about that. And his comments were that the amount of work needed there was substantial enough to require an architect. However, an architect is designed for change. If you want to change the interior layout, change the facade, add on those things, I don't think we're doing those things. We're just going to do the roof and do the windows.
I think part of this might be driven by the fact that once it came down and started looking at the building, they did go on the roof, because the roof has always had leaking issues. And when they got up there, they found out the facade on the front of the building has rusted, supports have rusted, and that's in danger of falling off. So it would appear as if the limited time I've had to look through this information is part of that is architectural design to replace that facade. And architectural is designed to change the slope of the roof. I'm not so sure you need anything to change the slope of the roof. I think a pretty good carpenter can figure that out. Much design in terms of facade. I don't think the facade is that complicated either.
Well, I would like some time to review this with Mr. Mitchell.
I'm not comfortable making a recommendation.
I would caution both chiefs. We definitely, these are our buildings. They need to be maintained, and they need to be, they need to be maintained so we can use them for future use, even if they're being sold or moved on. With the ARPA money and some things that are in play right now, we're trying to move through the sunset. Mr. Loudon is, or Mr. Klein, sorry, went back to my old ways.
You were doing so
I
well.
know, for weeks.
Loud and duly noted.
So
Regression to the mean.
I'm sure we're gonna have some discussion this evening about that, where Sunset is, we're moving forward with it. I don't want to dump, I want our buildings to be maintained, but to make major changes in them other than what we immediately need to do, I don't want to spend a lot of money doing that when we might be building a safety center somewhat quickly, I hope.
Do the windows maybe.
Yeah, the windows and the fire department.
Some $1,000 gets you a lot of windows.
Well, you need to
Just
dry
that.
it in. The roof can't
Right.
leak. The windows.
The
have to be
doors can't
watertight.
have holes in them.
Yeah, it needs to be a good sturdy structure.
The fire department has grown out of their space years ago and
The
need to be dealt with.
The window people, the window experts and the roof experts, they don't need an architect in general.
I guess the general flavor I'm hearing from my compadres as well as myself, chief,
Yeah.
is that I'm not sure we need an architect on this project. I concur with that.
And I concur with that. I don't think we do.
The only thing I'll do is reserve my opinion until I get a chance to talk to
I'm
Mr. Mitchell.
reserving my opinion. Because I was going to put something down the table and tell you what I thought. This, which doesn't involve an architect.
I think we talked about it this morning at the department head meeting, and Mark was clear that he felt the repairs that were needed at that building were beyond his expertise. And so he wanted to consult with an architect to see exactly what would need to be done. So I, again, would also defer to Mark at some point if he's able to, give us some recommendations or note the things that he saw at the building that we might not be aware of. So,
But it seems like we need more of a general contractor than we do an architect.
yeah, and part of this
Exactly.
agreement is him being the owner's rep kind of thing. So.
I think we're in agreement there, we're migrating away from this architect thing. We can both
Well, again, I'll reserve my opinion, but
send some comments at a later date. So the only other thing I would have is if you want to discuss the speed table situation. This is the information parks supply quite a bit in here, quite a few streets. He and his staff did a tremendous job putting all this together. A lot of data here for a lot of streets. I think he's right. I think that the Ridgecrest area, the Westmont area, Creek area are probably three areas that could benefit immediately from the speed tables. I think he's also right in Ridgecrest, you're going to have to put at least 2 speed tables in place. Identify the areas. And actually, you might have to put 3. I think if you put them in and you watch how the traffic goes, I think sometimes people in other communities that have experienced it, once the speed table or other speed control device comes into play, that sometimes motorists will slow down for that table or that speed bump and then immediately accelerate to get the rest of the way down the roadway, which could happen easily on Ridgecrest because it's so long. So you might still get the speeds once they go east of the speed table until they get down to the Heritage Woods intersection. Westmont could definitely use 2. And I think Westmont will benefit the most in part because of the curvature of the roadway, the way it curves down there. So, and then Creek Ledge could benefit because of just the characteristics of that neighborhood, with the number of homes, the number of small children there, cars parking on the street.
And we have 5 to place at this time, correct?
He said we have 5.
Yes.
Well, when we got the original data, Ridgecrest was 5 times higher than the others. So I have no issue with moving forward with Ridgecrest with those 2.
I would say Ridgecrest, we've always had complaints.
Yes.
We've always had issues.
I do have a question that have we addressed everything? Specifically, I know Mr. Daniel came in and asked about Carl. I want to make sure that we at least looked at everything that we're supposed to look at. And I know you haven't looked at it yet, Chief, so I'm not asking you for that today. What I'm saying is, my opinion is, we know Ridgecrest is an issue. Let's get those tables in place there.
He has Carl in.
Okay.
He has Carl in.
Okay.
Just want to compare Ridgecrest, Carl for a moment. Just a quick glance. The percentage of vehicles speeding on the day that the most speeders take place on Carl is 29% of cars. On Ridgecrest, every day of the week, the percentage of speeders exceeds 29%. So clearly the problem with Ridgecrest is more significant than it is in Carl, and I would confirm that with the fact of the lack of complaints received from folks in Carl. So I think his data bears that out. Go to Ridgecrest before you go to Carl. I'm not saying you're not going to address Carl. Statistically.
Are you okay with the board approving the placement of the speed tables on Ridgecrest as advised by Mr. Mitchell?
I am. Yeah, I am.
And then
Start
work through the
there,
rest.
and they're going to have to start putting those in place. It's going to take some time, and they're probably going to learn better how to put them in. Yeah, I have no problem.
Does he know where he wants them?
Yeah, he mentioned it.
Yeah, and that is a
I
major
mean,
cut.
on the street itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's 3.
He said he's talking about doing 2, and he mentioned exact placement.
Yeah.
Ridgecrest is a major cut through from Hametown. It has been for years. From Hametown corridor traffic going to Ridgecrest to make their way to Heritage Woods. Get out to Route 8.
Just to provide all the information since Mark is not here. Again, we discussed this today in the department head meeting, and he does have a concern with placing, he has a reluctance to place the speed tables now, knowing that in 6 to 8 weeks we'll be removing them for the snowplows. So he understands that the board is adamant about putting them in, but I just feel since he's not here to speak up, I would speak up for him and indicate that he does have some concern about the number of bolts that are required to put these speed tables in, and when you remove them, filling them, and his reluctance in knowing that that happens in 6 to 8 weeks.
I understand. This is my opinion. I understand that, but it is, as we mentioned here, we need to get our feet wet a little bit here to see how it goes. So maybe we place them in these areas and figure out we need to move them to a different area on Ridgecrest. So being that Ridgecrest is the most aggressive speed cut through, I would still get those in.
Do you want a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
I'll move that we place 2 speed tables on Ridgecrest at the locations that Mr. Mitchell has specified.
I'll second. Any other discussion?
Yes, really quickly, as far as having to remove them before the snow flies, you'll recall that we started this discussion on speed tables back in April. Maybe we should have moved sooner, then we wouldn't have the 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, you got to realize we just got them as well. We just got them 10 days ago. So
Well, there was a delay in ordering them after one trustee meeting that cost us an extra 2 to 3 weeks. So the fact that there's only 8 weeks till snow flies, that's on us. We need to get them in and protect our people. That's my thought.
I didn't know that there was in general a discussion about speed tables last year or the year before.
No, we discussed it this past April. My point is it's been 4 months in the making. And back in April, my desire was to get him in before school got out.
Up to that time. You create a scenario that I don't believe exists. If one person came to the meeting and asked about speeding, and then we discussed speed table, wasn't it?
the only thing I could say about it,
It wasn't a high priority board issue.
That's fair,
prior to.
but it's been a constant issue for our citizens, and they've asked us to do something. And finally, we're acting.
okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote.
Josie, yes.
Colner, yes.
Schulte, yes.
All right, so you'll convey that to Mr. Mitchell? Ms. Marshall?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else, chief?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, how long was his?
Oh my God.
More than 6 minutes, chief.
You were 15 minutes. You were 3 times. Chief
So
Howard.
there was some significant business to be discussed. And I could have cut a lot of this out. But to me, Mr. Coleman's wish, he was formed.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Klein. I apologize for my inability to stay focused with that.
Doesn't bother me. It's a rather unique person.
It bothers well, it bothers me because these guys make fun of me.
I'm just gonna call him Mr. Louder and get it over.
You can go by my middle name too.
Are you gonna
My
tell us
middle
that?
name?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Wade. It's much shorter and easier. You just think of it as Wade Klein.
Okay.
All right, thank you. My first item for discussion is I would like to discuss with the board a potential concept that we are mulling around, which is a event for Copley Circle businesses. This would be a business promotion event. So we've already hosted several ribbon cuttings and done some promotion for the new businesses here, but they've all kind of joined the circle and invested in the community simultaneously. So we feel like it would be a good opportunity to do some kind of event to promote those new businesses and also bring in and cooperate with existing businesses we have around the circle. So we've kicked off a few discussions with some of those in the area, and they are more than supportive of that concept and really excited about potentially doing something there. We would have some names that we've kicked around, like the Taste of Copley Circle or Sample the Circle and things like that. But my question specifically for the board in introducing this is, I guess, one, in general, are you supportive of something like this? We're looking at potentially, moving rather quickly, and it would just be, one day evening event. So it would be probably looking at before the weather gets bad, late September, early October for something like that. So I guess that's question number one. Question number two, we would probably, be promoting this from our department in cooperation with other organizations and businesses in the community. So it would be, I'd probably come to the board with more information about participating in some of the promotion and branding of this event. We do something, specific with a name. And then lastly, location. So in speaking with the businesses, the ideal location would be the circle. And, if we look at one of the businesses we've talked to is Brighton Brewing, and if we were to utilize their parking, it's not extremely accessible like the Circle. And then when we take up that whole parking lot, where does parking take place? So if we were to do something at the Circle, we could, work with the police department and try and do a lot of traffic control just to make sure pedestrians could cross safely. We could potentially use the parking here at Town Hall and do some kind of, brief shuttle service. My hopes that the CIC, which owns the house at 3564 Copley Road, just across from the crosswalk, would, working with some demolition specialists to try and get that demolished in the next 30 to 45 days. So we would have that land to be utilized kind of as a holding station to get people back and forth, between the Circle safely with the crosswalk there. So not telling you what the decision should be, but I'm just saying if we were to utilize the Circle, we would try and put out all the measures in place to make it safe. But my point here today is just to introduce the concept to you, get your thoughts or questions. If you have questions about where we're going to locate this or what options, I can go back and try and get those questions answered and do some research. So initial questions, thoughts on that concept.
So we had some discussion about this, and my opinion is absolutely. We have 3 new companies that open in Circle. We're trying to promote the Circle as the public has asked us to do, and multiple surveys now. So I would do it. My question would be like a 2 to 3 hour event. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we were thinking, at least when talking with the businesses initially, maybe something like, noon to 5 or 2 to 6, something like that. That way, if we want to have it end before it gets dark, so we can make sure everyone can get out of there safely, because of lighting and like we talked about the issues before with pedestrian safety. So I would envision it something like that, just on a Saturday.
Chief, what's the likelihood of being able to provide crosswalk or safety control for that?
And the thought was if we did it on a Saturday, it's hopefully the lowest volume that the Circle sees on traffic compared to, a weekday evening, like a Friday night or something.
Anything and everything we can do to promote the Circle, we should do.
That's my opinion as well. This is a one-off event, and we are making strides. The parking is one. Making strides to get the Circle better utilized, but safety is the paramount issue here. With parking and crosswalks and being a one-off event, I would be supportive of doing it the Circle.
Okay. Yeah,
and
safety's priority. Yeah, that was the first concern we had. So I think we'll make sure that, adequate parking and all that's addressed so people can get there safely. I think we identified parking for people, whether that's here or we can speak with the school about their lots and just make sure that people have somewhere safe to park. And
it would be really nice to promote a new parking area there and the sidewalk maybe that's going to go in from the middle school. It'd be nice to promote all that as well.
Yeah.
During that.
Yeah, we can do some cross promotional activities. So, well, I appreciate the conversation. We'll get moving on it. Like I said, all the businesses, I introduced it with them initially, and I think everyone is really supportive of the idea. We've got some great investment going on in there, so I think it could be great. All right, thank you. Couple updates on the capital projects. So the first one we already mentioned a little bit ago is Sunset Drive, that improvement project. So we are continuing to work with CESO, the engineering consultant, on moving that project forward. A few weeks ago, we held a meeting with Summit County Engineer's Office to review some initial layouts for the road network. Appreciate Tim Boley and cooperation with that. It was a very good discussion, and we feel that that project's moving in the right direction. We're working with the safety chiefs as well to review the different concept layouts for the road network. But all in all, the project's moving forward. They've done a lot of due diligence in terms of environmental analysis, stormwater analysis, as well as utility mapping and so forth. They've got the survey complete, so the project is moving forward in the right direction. We're just kind of hashing out the details on the road network and so forth. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on that project, but everything is trending along.
Is there a timeline when we will have all of this preliminary work done, where it'll be time to begin to actually construct?
We don't have a definitive timeline yet. I think they were waiting to see what the comments back from the Summit County Planning Commission, the engineer's office were, because that was pretty indicative of what this road network would have to look like, what variances would have to be sought and so forth. So I will ask CSO for an updated timeline, but I think the aggressive approach would be trying to have design complete sometime in the spring of next year.
So no construction until next summer at the earliest, as you're thinking?
Likely, because of the discussion we've had about design, bidding and so forth, and getting on, contractor schedule. But, I'd love to, once we get these large issues addressed, to get back on a more aggressive schedule that we initially had with the project.
I'd like to make a comment about it, just so that this has gone on so long, some of the public might have forgotten the time, what we're trying to get done. Just so it makes it into the minutes. So people on Sunset, the owners, the several owners that own property on Sunset donated their property to the township so the road could be dedicated. The road, now we're moving towards moving the road, or keeping the road in place, but extending it through and making a curve so it comes out on Cleveland Massillon Road. That will then gain access to township-owned property and other commercial property that is not utilized because of lack of access. So we're hoping that promotes building in that area. And then I believe the board is going to move towards funding or trying to obtain funding for a new safety center that'll sit against the railroad tracks. That's what this whole, just want to reiterate what's that whole project and how long it's taken to get there. But that's what the intention is. How we arrive at that might be not clearly mapped out, but we're on the road getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, the road was private previously and substandard, so it'll be full depth repairs and putting in, curb and gutter, sidewalks, street trees and so forth. So it'll greatly improve the existing properties throughout there. So it'll be a nice, bringing utilities and so forth. So
and that was my personal hope, was to make something really nice there and use that as an anchor to start improving things at the circle itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Any other information?
Okay. Just two more updates on capital projects. So we've been talking about several different trail projects. Again, those were identified in the beginning of the year with the environmental design group capital improvement plan. So the committee has been set. Feel pretty good about the committee that we've established. We'll be likely sending an email out tomorrow with the draft agenda, letting all the members know what this committee is about. And we are going to be hosting that meeting on August 26th, likely sometime in the evening, just to meet everyone's schedule. So more information to come on that. Again, the goal with that committee will be to identify those target projects, prioritize those, target some funding opportunities, what's best fits for each project, and address the issues that might affect each project, maintenance, any land acquisition that's necessary, environmental concerns, and so forth. So hash out all those issues, but that'll be a good committee to get those projects moving in the right direction. And just a brief update on the senior playground. Mr. Mitchell and myself met with a second consultant out at the park to discuss different equipment that we would like to see for the senior playground. We're waiting on that quote. Once we get that quote, we will sit down and come back to the board to move forward with that project, and at very minimum target some community development block grant funds through the county. So that's the only update I have on since the last meeting on capital projects, but any of the other ones I'd be happy to touch on if you have questions.
Anything, Mr. Dressler?
I'm good.
Anything, Ms. Marshall? Chief Bauer, anything?
I feel balance my time.
Nice. Thank you, Chief Bauer. You're a good man.
Move. Chief Meyer? I'm digging here, buddy. Oh.
Which, according to what I've talked to the transportation, should not create much in the way of traffic delays for our residents.
Do you have a time for that?
We were thinking it's going to be somewhere around 12:30 or 1 p.m.
Could you put me in the text group?
Is it going on 21 and then Copley Road?
No.
They switched?
77 Copley Road. It's like right in Copley Road.
Oh, they're going that way. Huh?
They want to come this other direction. They actually have, I think, a couple trucks bringing the rocket, so the crane truck. They get to the facility, if they can't make the turn, the trailer inside this, but they're not anticipating. This company is very efficient in what they do. Some rocket plane, which is a little bit of so it's not that trouble. It should be interesting to see the rocket arrive. And I'm pretty much been assured by various staff that the rocket will fit into the building this time, unlike the plane last time. It's a minor modification.
They need a bigger door.
They needed a bigger door. They created a bigger door on the spot. I stopped over there today to talk to the guy that really knows what's going on. He's still not Anderson. Tomorrow, today, they're anticipating.
If you're in the area, I would appreciate a text, if you don't mind. Would like to see that.
So back to the matter at hand, Mr. Loudon.
Nobody forget.
In regards to the trail project, the Ohio Department of Transportation has the township stimulus program. Those application period was open at the start of August. Closes start of November. Are we confident that delaying an application for that money until after this trail committee meets on August 26th will not impede our ability to get any funding?
I think that application and program could be separate from the trail committee. I think there's important considerations in that the board's probably going to have to address. And the two things are that project only funds, if we're talking about pedestrian facilities, it only will fund sidewalks. It will not fund a multi-use path. And then it will only fund something that's maintained by the township.
Right.
So I think we've got potentially a few sidewalk projects that we've discussed, but and most of the sidewalk projects that we've talked about are not in township right away. So therefore we would have to have some kind of maintenance agreement. But the previous discussion has been to have a maintenance agreement with the property owners. If you talk about this example here, but if we would want to target that project, which could be a good project, I think the trustees and the board will have to take ownership of maintenance of that project if we want to receive the funding for that and apply for it.
So what I'm hearing is the Trails Committee is not going to have any influence on the grant writing for sidewalks. So we can move forward with that, correct? For like this sidewalk that we're already semi-committed to or trying to get done?
Yeah, I think an existing sidewalk replacement, absolutely. You know, I think that the Trail Committee, those are going to be more in-depth discussions and hash through a lot of
discussed.
But this is I mean, I think Ms. Marshall and I have talked about this application, and I think, you know, we definitely feel like this project will qualify. I just think we have to be ready to take on the maintenance of that.
Okay.
I think this sidewalk from the middle school to the circle is probably the only project that we have on the books that would be feasible for this township stimulus program. Mainly because we can probably speed up the process to get maintenance agreements with the county to do this project, since they already know about it. They already have that on their radar. To do the sidewalk from Kingsbury or Hametown Road to the high school is extensive with multiple property owners involved. And to have that done by November, I don't see that happening. Or enclosing the ditches, getting the right of way. All of these projects are based on the fact that the township either owns the property or maintains the property. And Ridgewood, we have nothing there. So this project here from the middle school to the circle is the most feasible, I think, and probably could fit into the stimulus program. There is a limit of $250,000 per project. So it's not a lot of money to put in a whole trail, even at Tri-State. But this being earmarked around 50,000 could be a very possible program as long as we get the county on board. So that would be our first step. And that's where we'll reach out first, is to the county to make sure that we could get an agreement put in place and that they would be behind this. Because they're going to have to send a letter of agreement, letter of support. There's a lot of data that you need to collect as far as usage and connecting facilities and so forth, which all can be done. But that's probably the one project that could fit in that township stimulus.
And you don't think the Tri-States property, anything over there would fit in there? And also, what about the Copley Road frontage at the park?
Copley Road frontage,
The,
like going across to
Up and down Copley Road, paralleling the road in front on park property.
Well,
To
if I
begin
remember right,
to connect the park to what will become the trail system.
I wasn't aware of that.
well, I think,
Is that part of EDG's plan? It's one of the segments.
yeah, I think that was at least designed to be a multi-use path. It's not to say it can't be a sidewalk, but I think the only portion that we would have possession in would be the frontage along the park. And so that's a conversation with the state. We'd have to talk to the state about allowing them to, construct the sidewalk. Is there room to construct it in the right of way? Currently, that's open ditch through there and so forth. So, we can pursue and try and figure out if that project would meet it. Again, we'd have to take over maintenance of that one. My initial conversations with the county on this one would indicate that they would be supportive of, us maintaining that. They wanted, before they would allow it to be reconstructed, want some kind of maintenance agreement to know who's going to maintain that. So, they said that can be you guys, or you can work with the property owners. So I wouldn't expect a huge hurdle with that. And, I think we could hopefully get their support on any kind of letter for an application. So I think those are probably, we can try and look at the one at the park. I think those are probably the two lead projects that qualify specifically for the stimulus program, just because it's related to sidewalks and maintenance.
Just don't want to go by the wayside. There's an opportunity here. The money's here. We need to get it. And if this becomes a couple of the connecting points for the rest of the pathway system, so be it.
we do need to pick the low hanging fruit first. If this is like Ms. Marshall said, this is already set, it's on the radar. Township has, or the CIC owns property there, move on that one first. And then if there's more that we can write for and try and get it. But, I'd like $249,999 of that $250,000 grant.
And you could have more than one grant come to your community
I think it's $250,000 per community.
per
max.
project.
Per project,
Oh, per project.
So why limit
for
yourself to one project?
1,300 townships.
Right.
I'm just saying,
I
there's
agree.
1,300 townships, so you can have multiple projects. We also looked at the NEFCO for the ARPA funding that you had sent some information on. And we are still pursuing that. There are two different ways that you can get funding. One is with a state project, which the state has to apply for. Then there is the EDA competitive tourism grants. I did attend a seminar or a webinar that talked a little bit about that. There are, under the EDA, which is Economic Development Association, there are projects, and they said in the webinar that it's earmarked for having 3 to 8 different regional projects grouped into one that they can provide this money for. So in other words, if there's a park that encompasses multiple jurisdictions, they've been looking to do this project for some time, it's ready to go. That's the type of project. They're looking at regionalization projects, not necessarily just within one entity. Again, you have to own the property, you have to have the people who are maintaining it and owning it be the applicants and so forth. There's one other area of this called from the EAA, which is Economic Adjustment Assistance. So we're still looking at that. Those applications aren't due until January of 2022. So I kind of feel that that could fit into the committee once the committee starts looking at some trails and so forth. And that might be a really good funding process for like the Little Farms area that whole project with Bessie Williams and all of that could fit into there because it does entail other entities. It is a larger, more regional kind of project. You know, they're looking at multiple jurisdictions benefiting from one project. So we are still pursuing that, and I think that one is probably most apt for the Trail Committee. And then, I don't mean to
No.
interrupt you, but then there was one more section of grants that we were considering this week, and that was for water extension and wastewater extension. So those were sent through the Ohio Township Association. The applicants need to be the people who have the authority to own and operate a water system or a wastewater system. So obviously that's the city of Akron and Summit County. So we reached out to Summit County for the wastewater. They were in the process of collecting projects. They had already contacted all the villages and cities and had 77 projects already that they were reviewing and putting points to and categorizing and deciding who their top 10 projects were. But they did say if we got the information in the next day or so that they could add that to the list and would consider it. Loudon spent some time putting it all together, sent them the information that we had. And unfortunately, we did not score on their scoring. So we are not one of the top 10 projects that the county was going to submit for this application, for this grant. The other 10 projects that they selected are primarily from Akron, primarily from the county, much larger projects or much more regional type of projects that they considered. The reason why we didn't score very well is because we don't own any of the assets. We don't own the sewer and we don't own the city, and it would require further negotiations to get that underway. The water segment of it, I sent out to the city of Akron asking them if they would be interested in or able to pursue a grant on behalf of the township to extend water into neighborhoods and other adjoining areas. I did just get a reply today that they would consider it. I have a contact now. I sent it to this Akron Water Department. They were unable to really process it. So today I got information to send it to the service director in the city of Akron, contacted them, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. But the projects that are for this grant, they are going to look at what your county's top 10 projects are and score accordingly. You can also submit your own application, which is what I would suggest if Akron is willing to write the grant. And on our behalf, I would submit it anyway. The likelihood of getting any funding from that is probably very slim because we're not in the top 10 projects of the county. But we are still pursuing that a little bit with the city of Akron, and Chris Luddle is going to contact me and get back.
So on sewer, you're telling me that the county selected 10 projects with the city of Akron, that the city of Akron proposed?
They're not all the city of Akron. Let me see if I have the list here.
The county engineer prioritized it. This is all same with those EDA applications. This is all coming out of the ARPA money. So everyone's kind of shuffling around trying to figure out a scoring system. This isn't something that they get every year. So the county engineer's office, in my conversations with them, had to identify 10 projects. I think they've got top 15 as well, out of 77 that they will send to the state for this wastewater project. I think one of the other reasons that we didn't score necessarily too high is some of these projects that did score high have what I believe is some serious EPA findings and violations that need to be addressed immediately. One of them being I don't know the exact information with the EPA, but I know that there's some sewer issues in Peninsula. That was one of the projects that scored very high. And so although we do have some issues with some of the package plants here in the township, I don't know if they, in scale in comparison to some of the projects that were identified. But it was a combination of projects from both the city and Summit County DSS that were selected within the top 10, 15 projects.
Just as, for instance, the Peninsula Sanitary Sewer, Britton Road Reservoir, University of Akron Rehab, Elevated Water Storage Tank Program, some acronyms that I don't know what they mean.
A couple of pump station replacements.
Right, Memorial Conveyance Rack were the top 10, and the top 10 were with City of Akron or Summit County. Richfield was number 11, and then Lakemore was number 15.
So Akron owns our sewer system, and Akron's saying that there's at least 10 projects more important than our commercial district in the JED. That's what I just heard.
I think they're saying 10 projects or 10 or more fit this grant better than ours.
That's
And the
what I just
grant,
heard.
yeah, the
That's
grant-
our JED partner. For the record, that's our JED partner.
Well, we can see if we can partner with them on the water side, but again, the information that we got on this grant specifically, we were made aware of it very late, and it was just last minute to get the information in, so we really didn't have a chance to sit down with either the city of Akron or Summit County, who's also provides sewer in the township, to see if we can partner on getting this application in.
I can only assume that Akron doesn't understand how pressing our sewer needs are. Maybe we haven't conveyed that to them properly.
Maybe not, but we can convey how important we feel it is to get it addressed.
It does sound like this water system, a water grant thing might be somewhat fruitful though, correct?
Possibly.
Yeah. It looks like a repeat of the Druid Hills is.
I'd like it to be. Mhm.
Fingers are crossed. No, not yet. I got another.
So and Ms. Marshall did a good job expanding on the EDA grants that we got the information from NEFCO. So we'll continue to look at those. I think a couple of those might qualify, but again, those are all new programs that just came out federally. EDA is a federal institution, and so those are all new to everyone. So we'll get some more information on those.
Is there an update on the ground lease with the Copley School System? We were supposed to get that over to them, a draft to their Board of Education a month ago.
I don't know if
I'm
David
not
has
sure if
completed that.
David, a couple weeks ago, asked me a few questions about some of the logistics with access and easements, and I gave him that information. I don't know where he's at on the draft of that yet.
David, are you on?
He's there.
Yeah, I'm on. My camera's slowing up. Yeah, I've got a draft of that in the works. I have another lawyer in my office, Karen Moss, was taking the lead on that for me to review. Should be able to have that done here, I think, this week.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so what I heard was a draft coming out this week or next for that. Good, okay. Anything else? Anything else?
Bite my tongue. I'll hold it.
Okay.
All right, and then I think the monthly report might be on the next slide. I sent this to you this morning.
I did see it as well.
Yeah, a pretty standard month. We had 15 permits processed, total valuation just under $1 million and 988,000. So for the year, we've received 138 permits. One of the highlights is the BZA had a very busy month last month, hearing 5 applications. So again, always take the opportunity to appreciate the work that our boards and commissions do, hearing and meeting throughout the pandemic and continuing to be very busy and diligent hearing all these applications. So that's all I had on the monthly report. If there's any questions for me from anyone.
Anything for Mr. Klein?
You have an executive session?
Thank you very much. I do. I always forget that. I do have an executive session request to discuss a potential land sale or sale of property.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any old business? We have one thing, capital projects and financing. We discussed at the last meeting, trying to determine what amount of debt service we could afford in trying to line that up with our capital improvements that we approved in March. So, Ms. Marshall, do you want to expound on that?
I have the spreadsheet that Mr. Schulte prepared on capital projects.
Take your time. Was there any other old business? Did you have any old business? Nope. Any old business? Mr. Schulten? Let's say something different. Let's say,
Call me Mr. James.
no.
No? All right.
Mr. Loud.
Well, while we're waiting for Janice to pull it up, what's the status of the loan application for the water pollution control, for the wastewater pollution control, like whatever that acronym is from the EPA?
So we approved the proposal from Environmental Design Group at the last meeting. We sent that to Summit County, Mike Benet and their team.
Mhm.
And they have been in communication with Dave McCullops, who is the contact at EDG, on getting what they'll need. So I think we've got communication that they're working together. I think we've got a deadline that all that information needs submitted by sometime in mid-September. So all that's on track. Those two agencies are working together to get that information, the details of what the county needs, because I believe the county's likely submitted one of those before. So the proposal that we approved is in the works. The county is working with Environmental Design Group on our behalf. And once they have a chance to get more information and sit down, I'll report back to the board, but that is moving forward. And all, no issues to address with that.
So it's mid-September. Okay.
Yeah, we're good on the
And as far as probability of funding, has EDG given you any guidance?
I've not had any specific guidance on how likely that is to obtain. I mean, it is a loan, so it's not necessarily like a grant in terms of competitiveness. But in our conversations with the county, they didn't indicate that anything that would say that this is a unlikely chance. But we'll get some more information on the funding probability of that loan. But
I guess I'm thinking aloud, and I'm thinking as a board, we need to set a timeline for us to decide what we're doing with issuing debt, if we're going to issue debt or not, and if so, for what. And part of that equation is understanding what kind of proceeds we're going to get from this wastewater pollution control EPA fund. And if that's mid-September, then again, I'm thinking aloud, that would allow us some cover until then to kind of review and think individually what other projects we may or may not want to do for the township to float debt.
Well, I get that, but we have a list of priorities that we made up in March for capital improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And my question during the last meeting was to Ms. Marshall, what can we support through the general? We all know that the police and the fire levies, service department levies, they fund exactly what they get. They're not savings accounts either. We decide what kind of services the township decides what kind of services we're going to provide, and we fund appropriately. The general fund is similar. There's not a lot of revenue there, other than with the only discretionary spending we have is the revenue that we receive through the JED fund. How much debt will that cover in repayment? And that's what I'd like to hear from Ms. Marshall. And you helped with this spreadsheet. We talked about the parking lot. We talked about, we approved moving forward with the improvement on Sunset. And there might be one or two other things in there. I can't read it, it's too small, but Ms. Marshall, you want to take it from here? And
Well, sure, I'll just kind of explain what this spreadsheet is. So it has a list. These are all of the possible projects identified as from EDG and identified by the board as potential projects that we want to do. So the yellow indicates, changeable things that you can put different items in, and it changes the overall look. So this sewer project here is basically what we are asking the county to fund through an application to the loan fund.
that is still our priority.
Yes, that's indicated last time when we asked EDG to continue and provide documents for the loan. We've indicated that this is a priority. So this sewer project is a priority. And at this point, we've thought that we would fund that through this WPCLF loan. And Mr. Schultz provided a look here that if we have debt of 4.894 for the sanitary sewer cost for a 20-year period of time, the county loan is apparently at a 0.46% interest rate, that we would need to have an annual amount of $256,210 to service that debt. Then his question is, what additional projects would we want to consider funding? So to Mr. Colner's point, we have already approved this middle school parking lot at $250,000, and we have focused on Sunset Drive improvements at 2.9. So this 2.9, if we issued bonds at that rate for 20 years at 1% interest rate, granted this is at 2.25, but the 2.9 for the Sunset Drive improvements, I believe also includes sewer, which is about 400,000. Is that true?
Yeah.
So we're down to about 2.5. So given a here or there, that's another $124,000 that we would need to be able to service. Those two numbers come to $380,000, $382 annually, which can be covered potentially from JED revenue that we currently receive. The $250,000 that we had earmarked for a middle school parking lot is currently in the budget. We have $100,000 that we had earmarked for this middle school parking lot originally in the permanent appropriations. We also have some other discretionary funds in the amount of about $350,000 that I don't think we're going to be pursuing the original use for. That could cover the other $150,000 here. So we could pay for the middle school parking lot out of our current revenues, and then service debt for the middle school parking lot and the sewer out of the JED revenue that we collect currently. The other projects, you know, if you are mainly multimodal trails, there's broadband here. So those are up to the discretion of the board, what other projects they would want to fund if they want to assume more debt.
Okay, so break this down. If we do the sewer projects in Sunset, we're close to 8 million, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the debt service on 8 million is what?
So this is debt service on 7-8 million here, and that is $380,382.
Are you comfortable with your knowledge and experience? Are you comfortable with covering that much debt service?
You're asking.
I'm asking Ms. Marshall's opinion first.
We have funds that could cover that debt, but you would have to make some decisions about funding of the CIC.
And then if we used ARPA money for that, what would that bring it down to then?
Well, if we use the ARPA money and did not take out this full loan, that would be 3 million there. So that's.
So we're down to 5 million basically. What's the debt service on 5
What
million?
about the other sewer, the other JED?
If I can, Janice, may I jump in?
Yeah, sure.
We have that in there, right?
So
He's got a good question here. So ARPA money totals about 3 million, correct?
3.5, yeah.
Okay, 3.5. And we have
I'm sorry, ARPA money and the
in the JED.
JED fund.
Okay,
There's the
there's 3.5.
and that 3.5 is already in these computations. So you're using the 3.5, and then from there, you're going to get wastewater, a sanitary loan for 4.8 million. That leaves a bond issuance of $2.25 million.
For the,
Oh, so the $2.25 million is what's 256,000 annually?
No. The 4.9 in sewer is 256 annually. The 2.25 million is 124,000 annually.
Right.
And that includes using your ARP money, the $1.7 million sewer fund, as well as as well as those two loan elements. And it's for everything that is marked up above with a yes.
So you're taking the full loan out for the full sewer.
Right.
So you're paying back 256,000 annually.
Yes.
Okay, so you have another 2.25 available. And you've indicated these other items up here, and then you're including this 1.7 and 1.8 in those other projects, correct?
So your total, if you look, the total cost is $10.6 million. The 10.6 is going to come from four places. It's going to come from the $1.7 million jet fund, 1.8 from ARPA, 4.8 from the EPA loan, and 2.2 from a bond issuance.
Okay.
If you deselect anything upstairs, for example, if you want to deselect $1 million for broadband, take that yes out of there, Janice. Just hit delete, yeah.
Did you enable editing?
You must not be enabled.
Yes.
It's not protected, so you should have full access.
Right.
And it doesn't say you're in.
There one. I'm still on. There we go.
There you go. Now, if you go down, because you took that $1 million for broadband out, you go down to the bottom. Your total cost now is 9.4. Your first three funding sources are the same, but your bond issuance dropped from 2.25 million to 1.25 million, and your debt service was adjusted for it. Okay.
All right.
Because you're using these monies, these 1.7 and 1.8 to do some of these projects.
Yes, we're using what we have first, then we're borrowing from the EPA because their interest rate's the lowest, and then we're doing the rest on the community's credit. I don't think collectively we're in a position tonight to decide yes and no on any given project.
No.
And I guess what I'm pushing for is, given Loudon's timeframe on the EPA loan is mid-September with the application at least, that might be a good time for us to make up our minds on what other projects we want to or not do. So that then we're in a position to vote on if we're going to issue debt or not. And if we're going to issue debt, then we can proceed with our bond rate. That's the time frame I'm thinking and I'm proposing that we lay out here, so we're all kind of on the same page.
That's fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did not follow the spreadsheet that you sent out as you're showing it now, so I apologize for some confusion on my end there. And what I'd like to do is, like I did today, spend some time with Ms. Marshall and go through this, and then figure out what I'm comfortable in issuing for debt.
Janice, I'm sorry.
And I'll provide the
I'll bring
board
cookies.
at either the next meeting or as quick as possible, the updated schedule on the EPA, when the funds need to be, when the application needs to be submitted, when they're awarded, when the funds are available. So we would know how that would counterbalance any debt that you take on.
Okay. One other thing I just want to mention, the two items, Janice, if you'll pan back up here. That's my fellow trustees, and Janice, as you're going, and Loudon, as you're going through this, I have $1 million for broadband and $1 million for multimodal. And my thinking there is kind of explained on the multimodal, because a lot of the trails will be funded with somebody else's nickel, but it'll be matching funds. So rather than us trustees sitting in this meeting and trying to figure out what path, we can't even figure out what sidewalk we're going to go for funding on, turn that over to the trail committee. Let them figure out where the best opportunities are to get the most matching funds elsewhere. We just provide them a flat sum. That's what that is allocated, is there for. turn it over to the trail committee, let them know they have $1 million, $100,000, whatever the amount is to work with. Go get your trails done. And to that end, I've asked Loudon, Mr. Loudon, if you will, to communicate with Mr. Rice, Dan Rice, about what the right amount would be to allocate there. So I'm hoping you can fill that number in for us, Loudon. And then the second item where I have $1 million for broadband, Janice, I don't know if you're in a position to talk about the county plan there, or if you want me to.
Well, we're having a meeting with them tomorrow, so that's a good start. As I understand it, the county is pursuing building a loop a broadband loop that would include all the entities within Summit County and enable them to have broadband brought to their main structure. So here at the town hall, we would be able to have broadband. Then they're talking about having some matching grant funds that could allow a community to extend it into the neighborhoods or into the business district or the commercial, whatever the community is interested in doing. So tomorrow we're having a meeting with their consultants, the county's consultants. They want to find out from all the different entities what we're currently doing, how much we're currently spending, and what our vision is for future broadband extension. So I know, Linda, I've invited you to the meeting. I hope you are able to attend and bring that cost information as to what we spend now.
Sure.
And it would probably be a good time to discuss what a vision might be for future broadband expansion.
Now or tomorrow?
Well, now, so that we can say tomorrow what our vision is, if we have one. I mean.
So I've thought this through, right? A little bit, but I haven't run it by you guys yet. But in my mind, if the county is going to run fiber all the way down Cleveland Mountain Road on their nickel.
Is that the route?
Yes. Then if we got the middle mile, if you will, which would basically be the major corridors of the community, if the township funded that with matching dollars from the county to take it down Ridgewood, down Copley Road, up Haintown, up Jacoby, for example. And that's on the township. And then if an individual development, a Heritage Woods, a Kingsbury, a Ridgecrest, whatever, wanted to actually bring broadband into their neighborhood, that would be funded solely from that neighborhood. That's my thinking. And that makes it a little fairer to the farmers, if you will, that may not be able to bring it to their individual property. We're providing it in general throughout the major corridors of the community, and it's up to then that individual neighborhood that they want to connect from there, and they can pay for it. That final mile, if you will. That's my thought.
I continue to look at what are the 5 or 10 year. I consulted our IT person. You will need basic fiber run for the 5G towers.
Mm-hmm.
He said essentially, or like neighborhoods. So this could mix in then. They get fiber, then they're going to be Wi-Fi. He says, I mean, that's the future, Wi-Fi. So the fiber isn't going to have to go to everybody's house.
Right.
But there has to be that main backbone running down the main.
So I think if we look at the backbone, that's a reasonable expectation.
The major corridors, basically. Okay.
Right. And then the transition will be what the Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile do for the 5G. Is they're going to run their own fiber.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be kind of back and forth.
Bruce?
I agree. It's opportunity cost. As we spoke with other consultants over the time, it's we have priorities, we have budgets, but sometimes things land themselves in our laps where we can move forward on a project that we couldn't fund before at all. Project that we identified would be nice, but never could happen until something changes. Now with the county putting in the ring, through their ARPA funds. That might be something where we want to participate in. I personally, I need to learn more about it, what the county is going to do and what we will need to do to participate, but I certainly would look at that. And he's right. It's going to go to these towers. The towers are going to be more densely populated, but they do wire between the towers and everything Wi-Fi from there. But whatever we can do to make it, if there's an opportunity here, we can participate and do something really advantageous for the community that we couldn't do without participation, without ARPA funds, then absolutely, I would certainly entertain it at least. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, I agree. Without this opportunity for the county and the ARPA funds,
We'd never
it'd be
have.
beyond our reach.
We looked
Yes.
at extending the gig. We can't do it. There's too much. There's too much funds needed there. We just can't do it for the type of community that we have. It worked in Fairlawn because they're very closely packed in. We have packed in areas and we have sparsely placed areas. We just can't do it. So, but if we can with this, it would be something we need to take advantage of. So that's my opinion on it. Does that give you enough direction to?
I think so. Obviously, tomorrow's a very preliminary meeting. They're
Yeah.
gathering facts, gathering data.
Yeah.
They are also kind of feeling their way through this and not sure how it all works.
What's their budget? They call it the loop, but I like Bruce call it the ring.
It is. the-
Well, it is the ring because
Oh,
it
it
is.
is the ring.
It is
That's
the
what Medina
ring.
County has one. Medina County put one in, but failed because it was not put in correctly.
Well, I think that's why they're getting buy-in from the communities before they do the construction,
Right.
which maybe didn't happen there.
Exactly. That was the issue.
But, they also are talking about a service center, so you would connect with having your own service center if you want to get into the broadband business, or you would connect with another community. Obviously, Fairlawn is very close. So there's some costs involved there as far as connecting and servicing and all of that. There's a lot to think about, a lot to consider. This is really just the preliminary meeting to find out, so they can gather facts and see if we are genuinely interested and would be supportive of their efforts.
If any single entity doesn't jump in, they'll just.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think,
I mean, doesn't have to be a continuous.
Mhm.
loop.
no, but I think they are going to make it a continuous loop to link all the government buildings.
Yeah.
But then if, for example, Norton doesn't want to expand it beyond their city hall, then the county would consider that, but that wouldn't necessarily kill the deal. That's my understanding.
Right.
All right, okay.
And they're looking to see what kind of funds you do have to extend it. Are you prepared or interested in getting yourself prepared? I don't think anybody specifically is prepared right now, but I think they wanted overall temperature of what the interest is.
But
I have interest.
But I'll credit
It's easy.
I'll credit this board with this, because we tightened our budgets 2 years ago, because we spent the CARES Act money appropriately by replenishing our reserves. Now we're at a point where we can actually make an investment in the community. We've done our homework, and really, I think we're in a good place.
The fact that it's gonna come and they're gonna spend taxpayers' money, so that is a return to us with the broadband to whatever extent we can utilize it. But not maybe a large cost for us initially. That's, it enhances, regardless of what the other changes are, it improves whatever you intend to do. So at least having the base work here.
All right, so from a timing perspective, it's when Loudon comes back, we should have an idea what we want to do. Is that how we're going to proceed? And then figure out the bond issuance from there.
Right.
Okay.
I also would, for instance, the ARPA money can be used for broadband infrastructure.
Mhm.
So that would not necessarily be something that would be in a bond issuing.
So, correct. But we have, the ARPA money's in this funding already. So in the fund, in the formula here, the ARPA money is considered the 1.8.
So we would have to, increase the debt service if we decide to put, in this case, he was projecting $1 million. That's just an estimate, I would guess. I mean,
Well, I originally had it in there. I had $1 million for broadband.
right.
Yeah.
So that,
And it was still,
correct. When you put that, but yes, back in that column, it tells us what our debt service would be.
it dropped.
If you're going to put $1 million in broadband.
Right, it becomes 380. Right. So it's still doable within the JED funds with, money left over every year from the JED funds.
Shaking your head.
I'll ask Mr. Schulte later what he's meaning by it's included in the numbers.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
It's reducing the 10 million.
Right. It's
Right,
all-
but we're not identifying 10 million worth of projects that we want to do. We're identifying $6 million.
You are,
Oh.
everything
If you
that is
scroll
to
down,
include.
everything in
Yeah.
bold, the bold is the total 10 million.
And that's what I was confused with as well. So
So all this money totals 10 million?
No, all
Yes.
the projects that are yes, 10 million, and then the sources reduce the 10 million to what your debt service is.
Oh, okay.
if you
So
add up
this
all the
number
yeses,
is not all of these programs, it's only the ones selected.
Right.
Everything that you selected.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
bold.
Here's the known funding source.
Okay,
Here's what remains for your last fund.
okay.
But my question to you on this is so you get 9 million, you add in the sources of funding through the loan and then you've got 1.2 million left over that you've got to get a bond for. Do you have is the debt service to that also incorporating the debt service? I mean, you're
Yes.
gonna have to expend money to pay back the loan.
yeah, there's
Yes.
there's one loan in there, the
PCLF. Okay.
yeah, there's
So-
debt service there. It's added up in the,
Oh, so then I see the debt. Okay.
yes,
Then that's only 68,000.
right.
All right, I got it. Makes sense.
That took me a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we were figuring out how we get the loan money and then we're paying the loan back.
Okay.
That's the discussion I wanted to have. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Just one other item of old business. I would really like to thank Claudia Prinzo and all of her volunteers and all of the efforts that were put forth to have Heritage Days this year. It was touch and go in the beginning of the year whether or not they were going to have the celebration, and they really did a nice job of pulling it together. I think the community had a good time. I haven't heard any complaints, so I'm going to be very appreciative of Claudia and all the work that she did along with her volunteers, and looking forward to next Heritage Days.
It was great.
Yeah, it was.
I attended several things. It was great, including the Sunday night in the circle.
La flavor.
The flavor. The place was packed
It was.
and
You're a big job.
parking was not a problem. Hopefully you will have that many cars at the Copley Circle business promotion event.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing else for old business, on to the new business.
We have a JED meeting that has been scheduled. It was scheduled for September 7th, but it's been changed to October 27th or 28th. I apologize, I'm not sure if this is correct. Is it the 27th?
27.
Okay. All right, so it's scheduled October 27th at 8:00 a.m. There has been some discussion about the agenda and if we wanted to include additional items other than what Akron sent in their original submission.
Well, go ahead.
I'm not going to say a word. Go ahead.
So I had a discussion with Mr. Klein and Ms. Marshall about that to find my notes. In discussion with that, I wanted to lump in some of the things that we discussed and your email that went out as well.
Who's you? My email?
Yeah, your email.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So let's make sure we're covering the items that are, that we need to discuss in there. For example, on the original agenda that's sent out by Akron, there was no discussion about the number of letters we've had from JED property owners who would like to get out of the JED or get sewer, one or the other. So that definitely needs to be brought up in the JED board meeting. That's appropriate for that, in my opinion. What else was in there? Ms. Marshall, help me out here.
How the city can facilitate the extension of sewer.
Right. So we had some discussion about that. We do need city participation. If the county is going to move forward with sewer, we need the city to, and the director of the DSS, Summit County DSS, also mentioned, Mike Benet mentioned that we do need city participation to obtain some of the grants that are going to be available to extend these sewers. So we need to have that in there as well. I'm not trying to be inflammatory with the agenda. We need to discuss, or at least project our wishes for the Akron to participate with the county and us to get some of these grant proposals in. So that was another one. I'm reading the notes here as we go. I asked that Mr. Klein do a presentation about maybe a change in revenue sharing, or how our sewers need to be extended to bring back to facilitate economic development in those areas that are not utilized now. For example, Great Lakes Knife. Person that's in the JED area pays JED taxes, but has absolutely no way to get sewer to his property. And he not only property he currently occupies with his business, but property he owns contiguous to his property or to his original business property that is not being utilized or cannot be utilized because there's no way for him to access sewer. So were you in that part of the meeting when Marshall and I were discussing about, I think originally we discussed that Ms. Marshall was going to bring it up, but then you mentioned that you're going to be out of town, but that's not, now you won't be. So maybe you should be back on your plate.
Well, I think
She's rescheduling your vacation.
Yeah.
I think we wanted to do a presentation and inform the city of Akron the progress we've made with the county, because at the previous JED meeting last year, when it was virtual, the city gave us green light to consult with the county and figure out how the county can help in extending sewer.
Right.
So.
And why we need to extend it for things like
Sure.
Great Lakes Knife.
Sure, and to give an update as to how the progress we've made.
I think we also have, since we last met with the city, quite a bit of substantial preliminary engineering and design that we have invested in with Environmental Design Group, understanding depths and size of pipe in these desired target projects, that we can present that information. We've got some real tangible information on the projects we've identified, and some, like I said, some preliminary engineering information and costs we can share.
I think one way to also maybe request a change in the agenda, or let's address versus just a couple of quick things to be done. So it's the joint economic development district. So we have allowed there. I don't recall over the years economic development director them presenting from the JED and the Akron side. That say, I think the agenda could be up for everything you want to bring up, and you just put it in this presentation. Bring up every single thing you want, and it's in. We would like to do a presentation for economic development. That's the name of the board, and everything you want to include, you put it on his and say, our Director of Economic Development is going to do a presentation at the Economic Development Board. And you put it in there, and then you don't itemize it, that you just have him do it, put it all in there. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And here's the biggest reason for that, in my opinion, is the fact that whether it be Ms. Marshall, Klein, whoever speaks, they're our agents. When we speak individually, it's coming, it can be received as our individual opinion rather than the opinion of the board. Because they don't see us voting, they don't see us deliberating, and the JED board doesn't see those things. However, when it comes from our agents, then that espouses that the board is in full agreement with that. That's my opinion.
And I think that
That's fair.
encompasses what we want to accomplish and a way to do it.
It's my desire that we don't catch our partner off guard, that they walk into this meeting fully aware of what the conversation is going to entail. And I want them to be prepared so they can have a meaningful discussion with us. That's really what I want.
And we could, whoever's going to do the presentation could simply send a quick outline to them about what is going to be presented.
I think you could pursue it that way and then have Loudon say, I'm going to present. I need this amount of time.
Now, the one thing though, we've been requested by Akron to actually give them a written proposal on what we want to do for extension of sewer and change the cost share. I think that written proposal should be given to them well in advance of the JED meeting, so they have a chance to review it. So again, we can have a meaningful discussion about it, as opposed to them saying, well, we just got this, we'll review it next meeting. So sometime in September of 2022. Okay. I just think we should give it to them ahead of time, let them chew on it, let them think about it, so we can have a meaningful discussion. That's my whole objective here.
And I agree, but the issue is, it appears a possible resolution to this whole sewer issue is for the county to take over the sewer in Copley Township. Okay, so I don't think that we can dictate the correct. I don't think how we can.
Formula yet.
Right, it's going to be an agreement between the county and Akron.
Well, but so we're clear, there is no deal on the table today for Akron to sell the sewer assets in Copley to Summit County.
Correct.
They've talked about it. As we sit here today, our partner is the city of Akron. They've been our partner for 27 years. And as we sit here today, the only entity that is talking about building out the rest of the sewer in our commercial district is the township. So
is that accurate though? Because we've heard many times from the county that they're interested, including to where they're going to design specs for a pump station.
well, they're interested in owning. They're not interested in paying for it. So as a representative of this township and of the voters, I frankly have a problem paying for $5 million of sewer, as was detailed on the capital improvement plan just now, and giving it away to somebody else. I frankly have a problem with that, unless there's a way to help us pay for it. So I think that's fair to discuss with the only partner we have today, and that's Akron.
I don't know if I agree, because I've heard Summit County several times in several different meetings state plainly that they want to take it over. They corrected that they're not going to participate in 100% of the funding of putting the pipe in the ground. However, there are ways. The typical way is for a project to be vetted. ABC company is going to go in at this location, and they're going to extend sewer to their business, and that's how sewer normally goes. The difference in here is these JED residents or JED owners have been paying for sewer for 26 years now and not received it. So my take on that would be that we have collected, so is Akron, but we have collected JED revenues that we can then in turn use to get the pipe to them, get the sewer pipe to them. And that is located in the 1.7 million JED fund that we have accumulated over the years, and the recurring approximately 425,000 in JED revenue that we get annually now. And that's what we're doing with what we proposed in your spreadsheet. We received money from those folks. We'll
Okay,
turn
so
around
I
and
get
use it.
you guys, you want the, we're looking for the same thing, it's your approach, so think about it, we have a delay now, think about it, and at the next meeting, come to some type of agreement how to approach, trying to do the same thing, how to approach the city and the county to the potential partner and to make sure everyone.
I don't think we need to really delay. I think that we should let our agents come up with a presentation, outline the presentation, get it back to us, and we'll approve it. And it should include discussion about the people who want out of the JED. It should just include about what we're ready to do to service debt, to get pipe in the ground, what we're about to do. That's what I think we could do that now. Right, we can give them the blessing to move forward with that now and get it back to us.
All right, and we can.
And then we can modify as we see fit. Yes.
Ms. Marshall, does that sound
It's
feasible?
fine. Mhm.
Line?
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, that's what I planned on.
You
So
didn't catch that. I did that on purpose.
it's good with me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
good approach.
Does that answer, is that everything for old business? Or did you have more for us? I'm
That
sorry,
was
new business. New
I
business.
do not have any other business.
Thank you, sir. Any other new business for anyone else? Okay, then correspondence.
There was one item of correspondence. There's a request from a parent volunteer for Copley High School girls soccer team. They are switching their team dinner location from someone's house to Pavilion C in the park this Thursday, August 12th at 6 p.m. and was wondering if the township would be so gracious to waive the $25 fee.
So move Schulte.
Second, Jocelyn.
Any discussion? Does anybody have any of the department has a problem with us allowing a school group to do? I don't have an issue either. I just want to make sure. All right, I'll call for the vote.
Jocelyn, yes.
Kohler, yes.
Schulte, yes.
That's all I have.
Business from the floor. We have 2 reporters and a new assistant chief. Do you have any business for us?
No specific resident of the township attended our meeting. I've noted for years, the August meeting, I've noted in the meeting that there's like, I remember saying before that no one from the community attended.
In August, really?
Yeah, now we still have the, people can look online, but even before that, in person, I recall noting it before in August, on an August meeting, that everyone just is doing something else.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of hiring personnel in the service department and benefits of employment in all departments. For the fire department, executive session for discussion of employment in the fire department. In the community economic development department, purpose would be to potential sale of property. Is there anything else to discuss in executive session? That is my motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Piper, recall the roll, please.
Trustee Dressler?
Yes.
Trustee Palmer?
Yes.
Trustee Schulte?
Yes.
Take a 5-minute recess. Yes.
I know.
This conference will now be recorded.
Make a motion that we all.
Conditional offer.
Conditional.
Hello, Beth.
Second Schulte.
Beth, are you there? Yes.
Yes.
Make Make a motion that we hire, what's the other gentleman's name?
No, we're making a conditional offer of employment to Troy Lobby. We hired Sage
Sage
Ward.
Ward.
Okay, I apologize. I rescinded my last vote.
No, you made the right one.
I did?
Sure.
Troy, what's his name? Troy what?
Troy Lobby,
This is for conditional.
part-time fire pending successful completion of pre-hire testing.
So moved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, say aye.
See ya.
Aye. That's it?
Thanks for changing the date to the 31st. There is a very pressing issue that I need to deal with on the 24th. So, in Canada, in Falls, Meadows, and.
So I will not be here on September 7th, or whatever you changed it to.
31st.
Yeah, I won't. So
So
you're,
We'll make Loud sit up here, and we'll make Loud sit up here and run the. audio.
Wait a minute here.
Linda's going to be the secretary pro tem, right? And she's going to record the minutes?
She is the secretary.
She's not
You don't-
pro tem.
Well, Loud up here though.
I should have stopped